Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 107.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and Master Maine Guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered Master Maine Guide and have been a full-time outdoor instructor and guide since founding the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School in 1999. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident in the natural world through our bushcraft and guide training semester programs and multi-week canoe and snowshoe expeditions. You can check out the show notes to all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. If you're interested in learning more about our college-accredited and GI Bill-approved programs, visit the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School on the web at jackmtn.com. And check out our online network and digital learning academy at bushcraftschool.com. Hello and welcome back to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. Tim here with Christopher in the communications level of the semi-subterranean northern Maine layer.
Before he even says that, he starts grinning. It just makes him so happy. Hello.
End of the semester, spring semester. Over today.
Yeah.
Number 51. Number 10 for you.
Yeah, 10 in the bag.
5-6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll look back and say, what did I do with my life?
It's all a blur.
Yeah, so we're tired. We're punchy. Maybe don't lean on that because it'll shake the thing. We're tired and punchy. And
the wheel just came off my trailer, and I'm supposed to leave today. So that's where my head's at.
Took off the river yesterday with like a nice 25-mile-an-hour headwind. We started how we began, with giant headwinds
and
in
frustration.
Frustration, yeah.
It was good. It was a lot of fun.
So, yeah, busy. On to the next thing. So your summer plans, you've got a private class you're running this weekend, like in 2 days.
Yeah, so I got a boogie down to Vermont.
And
start all over again.
Yeah,
it'll be great.
Fun. And I've got a couple of days off to hit some cold water trout ponds and maybe even a quick sea kayaking trip to the coast before summer woodsman starts up in about just a little over a week. So,
yeah, that'll be awesome. I got a full summer of family bushcraft weeks down in Vermont, and my year-long program will be up here in. Geez, that's crazy. We'll be back up here in like 3.5 weeks or so to go run more rivers. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Go.
And we're especially punchy because we just did the solo experience, which is for students. They go off onto the land and have 3 nights with themselves and their thoughts to feel like part of the land, but for Christopher and I,
we have to put up with each other's thoughts the whole time.
Sitting in a base camp, seeing how many meals we can eat in a day and how little exercise you can get over.
The two of the days we were out there, it was above 90 degrees, and I'm pretty sure we spent more time laying in the river than we did doing anything else. It was so hot and buggy.
In the river, go up, eat something, back in the river, eat back in the river.
It was pretty nice.
But then we had a nice end of the trip. The weather shifted.
Yeah.
We had a nice colder air mass, drier air mass, high pressure system blow in with the winds that usually bring those things, and we always have those as headwinds around here.
Yeah,
because Mother Nature just likes to mess with us.
Well, it was a good. I mean So this trip was. This is my favorite trip that we run, and the 2 students we had this semester knocked it out of the park on it. You know, bugs were some of the worst I'd ever seen. The days were kind of hot and buggy and muggy. The fishing wasn't great, but we still had an awesome time. Catching nothing but creek chub, and we have a guy on this course who's a professionally trained chef, and so we had like a traveling fish stock pot with us, which we were making our dinners with every day. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I caught my first salmon in the Aroostook that I've ever caught, which was really cool. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And the wildlife really stepped it up for us. Like on the first campsite, mama and papa eagle, and then an eagle in the nest that we got to see. Baby beaver, which we all came around the corner and all 3 of us just stopped because there's this tiny little thing going me.
Baby beavers
swimming around.
Perhaps the cutest thing in the animal kingdom.
Adorable. It was pretty awesome, and lots of moose. So many moose.
Yeah, I paddled up. You have some great pictures of the moose, and then I was paddling and came up and this moose is standing in the river, and I got about, I think it was 10 feet from it, and I was like, this could end badly. You know, I kept expecting him to run, because usually they run when you're 30 feet off. I mean, they're basically blind, right? They look and they can't, so if they don't hear you or smell you, they're like, they don't know what you are. Yeah. So, but I just kept drifting towards this thing, and finally I got real close, and he said, okay, and he went the other direction, thankfully. Yeah,
otherwise you could have done that. We have this old book up here that's a terrible idea, but they talk about if a moose gets close enough to you in a lake, you can jump off and ride on his back. But be sure you get off before he gets his footing, otherwise you're in for a wild ride. Yeah. And like, I wish I could write books like that and get away with it. Like if I wrote something like that today, I'd get somebody killed. Yeah. They probably did get somebody killed.
They're remarkably fast swimmers. Yeah. Like I've been basically racing a moose. I was on the Allagash a few years ago. But I was in my 20-foot wood canvas boat, which is really fast, right? Really sharp bow and stern lines. So it's really fast boat. And I was paddling as hard as I could, and the moose was still pulling away from me swimming.
So you're saying you should have jumped onto its back?
I'm saying that like it'd be very difficult to do. It's basically like jumping on a moving car. It's not like pulling up going the same speed like in the movies when the gritty street cop and the wisecracking rookie are taking down the bad guys. Why does that
sound so familiar?
Because they always pull up and then one of them jumps onto like the bad guy's car or something. I think Indianapolis Jones did it in one of his things too. Anyway,
yeah, great trip. Excited to do it again soon. It was awesome.
Yeah. Good semester though. Obviously, we felt the impact of the pandemic here. Enrollment way down this semester, so we're hoping to bounce out of that come for the fall semester. And so far we've got quite a few more. Yeah. And I think people were just kind of spooked this year. We had 9 people sign up for the spring semester this year, which is a good number, average number. But then just people didn't make it out. Yeah. So hopefully,
tough time.
And I'm sure this is not news to anybody out there that every small businesses all over. If you're a giant business, you've made $7 trillion over the pandemic, but small businesses all over are kind of suffering a bit. So hopefully we can kind of pull together as a society and start bailing people out of this, not with bailouts and all the other kind of government ridiculousness, but more of just like going back to normal. And
what he's saying is come together right now over Tim.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. But yeah, the local area up here has definitely suffered a bit from the pandemic. We lost our local diner. A lot of the small businesses are having trouble finding people. So hopefully,
yeah, I'm pretty sure our courses keep the local ice cream place in business. We only had 2 students this semester. So.
Definitely. And everybody who works there is driving a new $150,000 automobile as a result of our students. So they eat a lot of ice cream.
They do eat a lot of ice cream. I myself have to take partial blame for that. But yeah, it was awesome to just have 2 people for a change. Like not monetarily, but you get really close with people. Yeah. In that kind of setting, it was a lot of fun.
And it was the first time we've had like such a small program since 2003, I think. Yeah. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll bounce out of it. And, if you support us and support this show, let somebody know about what we do, and maybe it's something they're looking to do, and that would be great. Other things this spring, morel mushrooms. People go out and look for them all the time, and where we found a bunch of them in several places was reminding me of something an old guy told me years ago. So I've never seen them in the woods here. I just don't, it seems to be a very specialized habitat. And essentially where I keep finding them is where there was an old fire years ago. And I remember in the mid-90s, I met an old guy in Alaska, and he says, oh, you're looking for morels? Just go to where there was a forest fire like 2 years ago, and they'll be everywhere. So this year, I think last year we had one in the garden, the old garden, by the guide shack, where years ago we had a fire, like for, I don't know, a year. We had a fire. It was a campfire spot. And then this year there were about 200 of them in there.
They were everywhere.
And then we found them at a remote campsite out on the river where we had, where we have fires but haven't had one since last year.
Yeah, a bunch of blowdowns over where, the fire is supposed to be. And so we kind of, in cleaning all of that up, looked in where the fire pit was, and there were 3 or 4. They were too far gone to do anything with on the trip, but it was a pretty cool thing to see them there.
Yeah, so if you're out interested in morel, mushrooms, look where there was an old fire, and maybe you'll be fortunate and kind of find them there. Yeah, other big news, big developments from this spring. For the past 20 years, I've had the same cook kit set up that I bring on trips, and this past winter, I had planned to canoe the Rio Grande River in Texas with a good friend of mine. Got COVID, didn't do it, but had to change some plans. I didn't want to bring my Wanigan, my wooden Wanigan cook box, in a desert river. You know, who knows what the water quality is like, and having to clean it. So I wanted something more in waterproof stuff. So I've been fooling around with a smaller cook kit in a 30-liter blue barrel, and had that out on the trail recently, and everything worked great. You know, and so super excited about that, to have the other option. Longtime listeners know I have always been pretty good at cooking for big groups and taking care of big groups of people, and then I struggle when it's just me or like 2 people, right? Because I'll often bring all the stuff to take care of 20 when I have 2 or 1 person. So this is a good step in that direction. Years ago, I came home from a semester course and was used to cooking with a 16-inch Dutch oven for 10 people, and
Your whole family gained 40 pounds apiece.
Yeah, I had to get my head wrapped around cooking for 1 or 2. So, this is another step in that direction.
Yeah.
But everything worked really good, and I'll probably have it in an upcoming video. One other cool piece of news: our friend Blake at Full Tang Outfitters sent us some tump lines that we've been playing around with, and I have an old Army Alice pack that I bought at an Army Navy store in 1982, so it's older than just about everybody who comes by here.
It's older than me.
But had a really easy time attaching the tump line super securely to it, so it's going to be like kind of the military surplus version of the Duluth pack, the canvas canoe packs that are awesome but pricey, but also have attached tump lines. So you can look for that probably in a future video. And on to our main point for the podcast today is talking about coaching. That there's kind of 2 ways to be effective as a coach. There's probably lots of ways to be effective as a coach, but there's 2 ways that we end up coaching and working with people as they develop their skills on program. And the 2 aren't mutually exclusive, but they're really hard for one person to pull off. So on the one hand, a coach can be very nurturing and help people to build their confidence and get them to where they are more mentally able to approach difficult things, right? So
yeah, you've got backup in your corner, so you're ready to take bigger risks, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a good thing to have, especially on some of these programs where stuff's challenging. It's hard.
So on the one hand, a coach can be very nurturing like that, but on the other hand, the coach is really responsible for maintaining accountability. So to say, okay, how far along are you on the bow drill requirements, or have you completed your map, or have you done X, Y, or Z? So, but it's very challenging to wear both hats at the same time, and I think that's one of the strengths for us having 2 instructors on this long course here, on most of our longer programs, is the fact that you can kind of play good cop, bad cop, where one person can be the more about nurturing people, helping them to get their confidence, get their legs under them, whereas the other person can kind of be focused more on accountability and be more of a taskmaster.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing. Different students need different things, so being able to read, if my approach is to always be kind of rigid and push people a lot, and I'm just applying that to everybody, then occasionally you run into a student that doesn't work for you. The same with the nurturing. Some people don't need you to nurture them. They just need you to give them the next thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's great. But what makes, I think, a good coach with both of these things is the ability to take your foot on and off the gas pedal when things are real time, because that's where the growth happens, is knowing how much push they need, I think.
I agree. Yeah. And I think, again, that's part of the idea that sometimes we'll do some joking around about, some outfits 6-hour-long instructor training class, right? Just because, around here it takes people on average a year or 2 years to where they're
I still don't know what I'm doing.
up to speed with being able to run a program. And essentially it's learning how to be an educator. And that takes time and can't be rushed. And it's not just like you don't just get like a cheat sheet of like 5 skills. Here's what you need. Now and get out there and do it. You kind of have to, you watch other people do it. You dip your foot in the water. You work with people in certain aspects. But to really run a big program takes a lot. And again, sort of the understanding how to coach people through something difficult. Say, for example, canoe poling, knowing when to push the gas and when to take your foot off the gas and maybe pump the brakes to some extent. So like we were talking about before the batteries ran out, that poling a canoe is probably one of the most challenging things that people have to learn how to do on our programs, right?
And when he says have to learn how to do, like they really, for a lot of the trips that we go on, they have to be able to pull that canoe effectively, because you can't get enough water moving with your paddle to control the boat. So
right.
There's a lot of stretches where if you haven't really dialed that in, you're going to be moving slow.
And that's one of the challenges of our long-term programming is it would be great. It would be easy if we're going on a trip into the North Maine woods, we just threw like backpacks on and started walking. Because there's, just about everybody can pull that off and doesn't need a lot of help in order to do that. But with us, if we're traveling by canoe, living out of the boats, we have to have people up to a certain skill level in order to do what we want to do and to be safe. So, week 1, we're not going on a long, difficult, arduous journey because people aren't ready for that yet. They have to build their skill set up to the point where we can do it safely.
Yeah, we had like we mentioned earlier in the podcast, yesterday coming back, we had this huge headwind. And so we kind of changed our plans, and myself and another student hopped into a boat together and just pushed as hard as we could to get back to camp and where the trailer and stuff was, because the original plan was just to paddle back to camp. And we came up to the island in front of camp, and that was the first place that they had really pulled. And the day that they had really, really first gotten their sense of it, there was a huge wind, very similar to the one we were paddling into. And to me, it was this cool moment as an educator where that was from the student's mouth. That was the most frustrating day in a boat that they had. They were getting blown all over the place. They didn't know how to trim the boat right. And I kind of looked back at him, and after knowing this particular person for 9 weeks now, knew that his brain was thinking one of two things. A, I'm so glad I don't have to do that again. Or B, I'm pretty sure I could do that now if I tried.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, because day 1, like, they had zero control of the boat. They were getting blown from one side of the shore to the other. And then I could see the look in his eyes, like, I bet I could do it now. I bet I know enough now to manage that. And that's the growth, right? And you don't notice that stuff unless you have a coach that points that out to you.
Hashtag teaching.
But it's true. I mean, it's because in your head, it's just, you don't see the growth that's happened until somebody like remember that first day when you were, when you fell out of the boat
in the pond,
totally and now
water.
Exactly, right? Like,
now you're running like class 2s, class 3s with 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Easy. And that's it. That's where the value of being able to balance the ability to like push people hard when they need to be pushed, and also like remind them of how far they've come. Yeah. And I probably get it right 5 times out of 10. And that's just part of it. I think you just kind of roll the dice on whether you want to yell at people or be nice to them.
Yeah. And I
genuinely just roll the dice every day, and whatever number comes up, that's how I decide how I'm.
That's because you're in an alley gambling.
Oh man. I thought I was learning to be a teacher.
The challenge is, though, and I don't want to make it sound like in order to hold people accountable, like you have to sort of be a little rough around the edges, a little rough with them. Like, I don't think that needs to be the case, but it's difficult to wear both hats at once, right? It's difficult to be like, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and how about a hug, right?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
You kind of choose one or the other, I think, in order to be an effective coach in a certain instance.
Yeah. From situation to situation, you definitely pick different hats depending on what's best.
Yeah. Not to say that the same instructor, the same teacher, the same coach can definitely wear both hats and does. And
I've seen you do it. I've seen you wear so many hats.
Yeah, you got to wear a lot of hats in this game.
Just because it's cold.
Yeah. But it's more challenging to try to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
In a short period of time.
Oh yeah.
Just the two aspects of coaching, being a nurturer or being a taskmaster. It's stuff that you learn from experience.
Yeah, and it's always learning at it too, right? You know, every night after we finish up with the day up here, Tim and I sit and like talk about how everybody did, and you know, the question we always come up with is like, who needs a win? Like, who needs us to build a situation where they get that confidence boost that pushes them through the next thing that comes up? And like, that's it. You know, we're talking about like situation to situation, kind of putting on a different hat, but like you kind of figure out what that hat needs to be before you get into the situation, and then it makes it way easier. Like, what's going to be the best option for everybody involved, and that's the hard part, because maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
We've talked on the podcast in the past about the difference between education and information. That information, say you're watching somebody do a demonstration of a certain skill on YouTube, right? And that's part of being an instructor, is being able to effectively demonstrate certain things. But education is where you're meeting the students where they're at. That's what educators do. And that's the crux of what we're talking about here, that it's not just delivering information. It's working with people. It's sort of semantics, but I say we teach people bushcraft. We don't teach bushcraft, in that the emphasis is always on working with people, meeting them where they're at, figuring out what they need to progress to the next level. Like that's the crux of what an educator does, and I think that's what we do here.
Agreed.
And then by breaking down things like how to be a more effective coach when you're coaching something, for example, canoe poling. What does this student need from me today? Do they need me to sort of build them up so they feel really good about how far they've come, or do they need me to break down exactly what's lacking from their technique?
Yeah, so like you were mentioning the whole meeting people where they are, and I think that there's two different types of that, where you're meeting people where they are, kind of in their sort of mental stamina. Like, how much more, what do they need from me to be able to overcome whatever the hurdle is? And also, am I meeting them where they are skill level wise too? Am I jumping right from lighting a fire with a match to doing it with a bow drill? And is that jump too big? Do they need more understanding of all, like, there's so much nuance that goes into all this stuff, and it's fascinating to me, this whole idea of how to better provide people with how to provide people with the experience that they need real time to get the outcome that they've set out to do is amazing to me. It's such a fascinating thing to sit and mull over in those dark nights in the alley while I'm gambling.
Yeah, when listening to you explain it like that made me think about finishing my master's degree in education, and if I wish some old timer had sat me down and said, now you can start really learning about this stuff, right? Because, the questioning myself, did I learn anything really useful in school, or all of the useful things that I've learned since then as a part of working with people. That's, like you say, it's kind of fascinating. It never gets dull.
Never.
It's like the ultimate in problem solving. How do we get person A to move themselves along the desired route to their goals and where they want to be? And, you're constantly changing tactics and techniques and approaches and,
and, like you were saying, it's a hard thing to do on your own. And it's always interesting. Like we said at the beginning of this, I head back to Vermont today if I get the wheel back on my trailer. I'm just going to keep harping on that. But
are you trying to say like the wheels are coming off? Is that
the wheels are off?
Is this a metaphor?
The wheels are off.
But you're saying that it's your actual trailer.
One wheel is off. Anyway, but I totally lost the train of thought here. But like I head back to Vermont and I'm running a bunch of courses this summer on my own, and I am always, by the end of my summer programs, I'm struck by the differences in how I run stuff without backup, right? Like, you're trying to wear all those hats all the time, and what it basically, it's just it's a hard thing to do on your own. And it's an interesting thing to think about, because the tactics that you mentioned have to be totally different. The way you approach things has to be totally different, because you can't dig yourself into a hole and expect the other guy to get you out with, if you're the really nurturing person, you can't go all out on that, because you need to have their respect to be able to, at the end of it, say, hey, like, I know we all had a fun time with the group hugs or whatever, but now it's time to make 17 miles in a day, like that. It's just a tough thing to balance. And so
you're saying that it's hard to actually cover miles when you're engaged in a hug. Is that the point?
Not if you could find a way to make love.
What do you do down there in Vermont?
It's Vermont. What do you think? Hugs. We do hugs. No, it's true. Like, it's just like the mentality has to be different when you're running programs solo versus, you have a team, and that's, I don't know where I'm going with this, but
I agree. Like, short programs, you're less of a nurturer.
Yeah.
It's more about being a taskmaster.
Yeah.
Longer programs, when you're really invested in the people on it, it's you know them to a deep level, and there you have more insight into how you can help help them progress.
Exactly.
So getting back to this, you're saying this metaphorical trailer wheel that fell off is also like a physical wheel on the trailer that fell off?
It genuinely fell off, and it's the thing keeping me from starting driving.
So the metaphor and the reality are the same now? Which brings us to, is life
this the group hug
imitating art, or is art imitating life here?
Neither. My trailer wheel fell off, and I'm angry about it.
Anyway, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I need to go fix my trailer wheel.
The metaphorical trailer wheel?
So
that means all of the things in your life.
The amount of therapy that it would take for me to get the wheels back on my metaphorical trailer is just, who's got that kind of money? Like, let's be honest.
Yeah. You'd have to
but a lug nut I can afford. So I'm going to go get those and put the real lug nuts on my real wheel. And pretend the metaphorical stuff. I'm going to keep it all right here in my chest.
I think maybe...
And then one day I'll die.
Maybe what you need is a hug nut. Anyway.
I hate you! Oh my God.
You have...
See you guys later.
Wasted another hour of your life listening to us prattle on. But thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with somebody. And we will catch you again later. Have a good one. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.